वही पिटी कहानी, वही fielding, वही bowling, वही batting. It's, to be honest, getting to my nerves. But here we are, about to talk, on the game that just ended like 5 minutes ago, barely 5 minutes ago. India versus Australia was supposed to be must-win encounter for India, which did not, unfortunately, end in their favor. Still, a performance that I want to say they can be proud of, but they shouldn't be, because right now it's high time that they start delivering on performances as well. We've got Neha coming back, Jeet as well. Neha, how would you summarize this performance? क्या लगा है मैच के बारे में?
Honestly, I think it's really difficult to, form sentences or even words for that matter after that sort of a performance. I think we've had umpteen instances where, India's come so close, yet, it has been a case of so far. I mean, losing by just 9 runs throughout, you could see the pressure was on India in the run chase. I mean, Harmanpreet Kaur's knock, I think, is something we will discuss as well. Like at one point, it was just getting run a ball. Matlab, kya chal raha tha was, getting very difficult to, decipher. And overall, I think India would not be very happy with that sort of a batting effort. I mean, there was intent, but yet, you could see all the pieces of the puzzle just not fitting together. And yeah, just at a loss of words right now, and extremely disappointed as an Indian fan. But I think Australia would definitely laud themselves for, for again backing themselves and believing themselves enough to, kind of defend that 151, which was always going to be competitive. But this was a spirited Indian side. So thode hopes the, but yeah, they kind of delivered and did their job.
Yeah, Australia seemed like one of those immortal monsters कि एक को मारो दूसरे आ जाते, दूसरे को मारो तीसरे आ जाते. Like just when India broke that Grace Harris-Talia partnership, it seemed like India can finally heave a sigh of relief and cut to BC at least maybe walking in. Someone else gets out, you see Annabelle Sutherland walking in. Phoebe Litchfield walks in at number 7 and you're like, यार मतलब करे तो करे क्या, डाले तो डाले क्या, और मतलब क्या चल रहा था. But Jeet, again, in terms of the performance itself, how would you look at this? Because it would be fair to say, right? Like, given everything that has happened in the lead up to the tournament, they've been in decent form. They've had decent match practice as well. I mean, not in the recent past, but in general, in the last 12 to 18 months, they've had solid game time. It's not the case of they've not played enough top flight cricket against Australia, against England. अभी क्या बोल सकते हैं यार?
Yeah, but even despite all the game time and all that stuff, we still came in with a question mark about a number 3 spot. So, क्या ही फायदा हुआ था as far as that is concerned? Because had we had all these games taken place, we should have been very firm on the playing 11 and who is the ideal batter for each of the spots in the top 6 or top 7. वही uncertain था, वही पता नहीं था, इतना shuffling हुआ. So उधर ही एक uncertainty था. But coming to tonight's game, I think we talked about how important the toss is going to be and why it's going to be imperative for India to be batting first. But toss ही हार गए. So उधर ही आधा game तो गया था हाथ में से. But I still feel that was a decent performance. I was not expecting Australia to touch or go beyond 150. I was probably expecting them to end somewhere around that 145 mark. And actually, अगर 145 mark पे होते तो हो जाता chase in hindsight. But yeah, वही थोड़ा scratchy थे. And Australia, despite not having Elisa Healy, they still kind of got the replacements. Grace Harris, did a decent job. I know it was a slow knock, a scratchy knock, but she still scored 40 runs at the top of the order and was important seeing off that new ball threat from India and kind of got the job done. So yeah, it doesn't matter. Australia, that's why we keep talking about it, right? I always, whenever I think of Australia, I think of a train that has got 11 engines. It's not one engine that drags all the other coaches like Sri Lanka has with Chamari Attapattu or West Indies has with Haley Matthews. Australia में train है जहाँ 11 के 11 engines ही है. Nobody needs to drag somebody. Nobody, pulls somebody. Everybody's a match winner, and आज भी वही हुआ.
Yeah, I mean, it's a telling sign that with Australia as well, every batter who faced more than one ball, because there were 2 golden ducks, so उनको तो consider नहीं करेंगे. उनके अलावा every batter who faced more than a delivery scored a boundary, barring Beth Mooney. Like, it just shows everyone who came in just chipped in some shape or form. Boundaries मारते गए, कुछ तो करते गए, और out हुए तो out हुए. Which is why they were actually able to breach that 150 run mark. Like, they were 65 for 2 at the end of the 10th over. It seemed like ठीक है, यहाँ से 140 तक पहुंच जाएंगे. उसके बाद you just saw that batters coming in were scoring boundaries. Elise Perry also first 10-15 balls, just like she always does, took her time. उसके बाद scored a 6, scored a couple of boundaries, and then out of nowhere she was 32 of 21. So she'd already done the job. Same was the case with T-Mac. She actually started off a bit slowly, was striking at below 100 for about her first 18 balls. Eventually ended up at 120, 130 in a 26 ball knock. और क्या चाहिए शाहजहां, man? That's where I guess India probably lost the plot. Like I'm guessing who mentioned it? Yeah, sports fan mentioned. Harman did do a good job of taking the game deep, but I guess she probably timed her acceleration, slightly wrong. She got the point of acceleration wrong. She delayed it a bit too much. We had to start accelerating at least a couple of overs earlier, if not further back. Or वहीं पे थोड़ा मतलब हम पीछे हो गए, because then we were always playing the catch up game. And we almost did that. 41-4. You thought कि boss अभी game India के हाथ में, 42-4 India के हाथ में. Richa Ghosh came in, and then yeah, he got run out of all things possible. Of all things, and again Phoebe Litchfield, मतलब लाते कहाँ से? ऐसा भी नहीं कि this was. You can't blame Richa Ghosh for that as well. They had to take that single because you didn't want Richa playing too many dots and increasing the pressure on Harman. Instead, just rotate strike. वो करने के चक्कर में direct hit from cover, straight from hell that, and yeah, it was just a tad bit unfortunate, but again, you can't really, sort of use that as an excuse. For the uninitiated, let's have the match summary out as well. Australia won the toss, pretty much winning half the battle there, and opted to bat first as expected. Grace Harris opening the innings in place of Elisa Healy, did score 40, was their top scorer, but again, wasn't the most fluent of knocks. Elise Perry on the other hand, 32 of 23. Talia Megha also chipping with 32 of 26, were the highest run scorers for them. India, on the other hand, did have crucial contributions from Renuka Singh at the top, who took 2 and 2 to help India, win the power play battle. And then Deepti Sharma, 2 for 28, Radha 1 for 14. Special mention to Shreyanka as well, who actually bowled very well across all three phases or across two phases. She bowled 2 at the top and 2 in the end. Good job by her as well. India in return falling 9 runs short. That's as agonizing as it gets. 142 for 9 is what they ended up with. Harmanpreet Kaur top scoring with yet another 50. A 47 ball, 54 for her. An unbeaten one at that. Deepti Sharma was the second highest run scorer, 29 of 25. And then there was Shefali with 20. With the ball, it was Annabelle Sutherland who bowled really well at the death, especially, including that 1 run, 17th over. That pretty much sealed the deal for them. And then there was Sophie Molyneux with a couple of wickets, including the important one of the Southpaw, Smriti Mandhana, and then Megan Shute doing Megan Shute things. Sorry, I stand corrected. Megan Shute bowled the 1 run, 17th over, not Annabelle Sutherland. But yeah, even then, Annabelle Sutherland bowled the last over and the 18th, and she did just as commendable a job there. But yeah, coming back to the game, folks, पता नहीं, let me just trying to sort of process everything and see कि कहाँ से start करना है. But yeah, let's start with the second innings itself, with India's batting. Neha, the opening pair, they did really well in the last game against Sri Lanka. A lot was expected off of them. Shefali started off well. Smriti once again getting out to spin and getting out in such an ugly manner. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that was really difficult to watch because in a run chase against India, against Australia, you would expect your top players to stand up and deliver. And Smriti Mandhana, although we got to see glimpses of that promise, in the previous match, somehow she couldn't quite bring it to this match, and it was just really sad for India because the entire onus then fell on Shefali. She did strike a few boundaries, but Shefali is also looking very tentative, right? I mean, anytime lag raha tha ki, if she mistimes it, she's going to get out, and that's pretty much what happened. And again, we saw a new promotion with Jemima coming in at number 3. So you're like, okay, fine, we have Jemima coming in there. She was taking her time to kind of settle. She did get those boundaries as well, but again, when she got out, you could see intent, right? At least that she's trying to get a boundary there. But I think things really came to a standstill when Harman was taking a lot of time to construct her knock. I think a lot of people were criticizing her for playing a lot of those sweep shots, the lap shots. Like, it was just feeling so unnecessary, and I don't know, it was just feeling excessive at that point in time. I know it was obviously to get those runs. I think even on comms, like Lisa Stalker was mentioning, ki, yaar, matlab, India should really try to up the amp, try to amp their required rate here, try to, get something beyond just the basic singles and everything. And pretty much, I mean, we lost by like a small margin, but then, as you rightly said earlier too, like Harman just didn't accelerate at the right point in time. But I mean, we would have expected our openers to give that sort of a solid foundation. I mean, just look at the match earlier in the day, the England versus Scotland one, where England, I mean, had the most ideal opening partnership with, Danny Wyatt and Maya Boucher kind of doing their thing. India would have wanted something like that, but I think it's also important to take into consideration the conditions. The pitch was, obviously wearing out. This was like the 4th innings on that pitch. But all in all, yeah, unless your openers give you that sort of a platform, it's difficult for others to, take it from there.
Yeah, again, Jeet, same question to you before we get to Harmanpreet, which we will. the start itself wasn't the greatest. Shefali did get off to a good start, but again got out in a very familiar fashion. And Smriti as well. I wouldn't say struggling, but I want to say struggling. Just struggled. And the way she got out to Sophie Molyneux, like, मतलब क्या कर रहे हो यार, क्या कर रहे हो? Like that was technically supposed to be her matchup, the one sort of bowler she could target and try and get some runs out of. Na hi wo hua. Instead, she just got it 12 ball 6, ended up dotting it a bit too much for India.
Starting with Shefali, I think she played splendidly well in terms of capitalizing upon the power play, and she was very attacking as well, finding her spots, finding her gaps, going aerially, and it was working well as well. But like we talked about in the previous game, where Shefali was very smart in making the adjustment, where she didn't fall for the trap of getting caught at long on. Aaj udhar hi gayi eventually. Sadly, she fell for that trap. A very slow ball, loopy ball from Ashley Gardner, and she hit it straight to Annabelle Sutherland long on. So eventually, she fell for it. Decent job there in terms of providing a quick start and shielding Smriti Mandhana as well from Ashley Gardner. But eventually, it was more about the dismissal and how she was dismissed. Basically, that same trap that's always laid for her and falling right into it. That is the only issue. Otherwise, attack करने गई out हुई. So I have no issues with that. But it's just that manner, यार, where पता है कि वो trap है, and you still fell for it. And just imagine, I remember this in the under 19 T20 World Cup where Scotland had, just imagine, Scotland under 19 had laid the same trap. If I recollect, the bowler was Catherine Fraser back then, or Olivia Bell, one of the two. I don't remember who exactly it was. They had a long on set in over number 1, over number 2, and Shefali did straight to that fielder. So under 19, Scotland under 19 team ने भी ये किया था. So तब से चलते आ रहा है, and आज भी वही हुआ. So सिर्फ उससे issue, otherwise intent was top notch. She was very good at capitalizing. But then Mandhana, I didn't see this as a matchup in favor of Mandhana, because yesterday I talked about how Sophie Molyneux can be introduced early because she could be a matchup against Shefali and can be a matchup against Mandhana as well. So she, I think, came into the mix in the probably 6th over, I believe, 5th or the 6th over. At the back end of the power play is when she came in. And Mandhana was gone straight away, first ball. When I watched it live, I was like, that's out. Surprisingly, the umpire didn't think the same way, but Australians, good on them to kind of review it and get that particular decision in their favor. But having said that, with Mandhana, the problem is that her weaknesses is not restricted to right arm orthodox spinners. Of late, it has increased significantly against left arm orthodox spinners as well. And there is a significant pattern to that as well. The way she gets dismissed and the kind of deliveries to which she gets dismissed. If you remember that Sadia Iqbal thing, that over the wicket, round the wicket thing. Sophie Molyneux, first ball over the wicket. First ball, spot on from her, and she got it. So it was sad to see India, at least the top order, falling right into the trap that was set for them. Coming to even Jemima, that over from Megan Shoot. She bought a short delivery at 108. It was a pace on short delivery at 108 from Megan Shoot. That was hit for a 4. Yeah, that was hit for a 4. And then it was a leg cutter at 94 Ks. So it didn't, of course, rise a lot. It was back of length, I would say. But again, that lack of pace here, Megan Shoot, shorter lens pay, she's dismissing you. So you're falling right into that trap. So it was slightly disappointing from that angle. बाकी तो क्या ही बोले फिर.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you want to say कि यार वो shot की जरूरत थी क्या? You've already pulled one front to scored a boundary. But then again, मतलब hindsight. All of this is in hindsight, and cricket is very instinctive. As much as we like to sit and analyze, जो वो moment में होता है वो होता है. Like instincts take the better of you, and that's how they play. Like they've always admitted this, and which is why I also, at least in my head, try and be less harsh, because I understand that there's only so much practice can do to you. Beyond a certain level, it's all about instinct getting the better of you, and then you letting it take over. होता है अभी, मतलब वो moment पे you thought you could pull that off, and yeah, unfortunately you couldn't. But again, speaking of hindsight, in hindsight they'll also really rue the loss against New Zealand. Not just the loss, the manner of that loss. मतलब just 53 runs was the margin a reflection of the gulf between the two sides? Absolutely not. If anything, one can very easily say that India is the better of the two sides. But does that even matter? It's New Zealand at the end of the day who got the 2 points, and importantly also inflicted a very big bump on the NRR, which is why now NRR thankfully is in our favor, because we have a plus 0.04 or plus 0.04 gulf between New Zealand and us, which means we are ahead of them. So all we need is for New Zealand to lose. So it's very clear, very simple for New Zealand as well, and very simple for Indian fans watching tomorrow's game. ज़्यादा कुछ मतलब calculations करने की जरूरत नहीं कि ये over में क्या होना चाहिए, वो क्या होना चाहिए, कुछ नहीं है. सीधा सा equation है. New Zealand have to lose against Pakistan, and that's all we can hope for. We will talk about that as well at a later stage. But now, sticking to India's batting itself, sure, top three did not perform, got out in a familiar fashion. Harmanpreet Kaur, again, she is one for the big games. We've always spoken about how, irrespective of current form, when it comes to, playing against the likes of England and Australia, you would want to back someone like Harmanpreet Kaur. And she did come good. Technically, 54 runs, staying there for 47 balls in that heat, she herself was clearly struggling. It's not easy. But Jeet, what did you make of that knock, as a whole?
I think it was still a decent job, but it's just that she dragged it a bit too much, which is something that can happen time and again when you're losing wickets at the other end. Quickly, when she walked in, I think Jemima was the first one who got out after she walked in. Uske baad, of course, Richard didn't play a huge knock either, having got run out straight away. Dipti did support her decently. But yeah, even Dipti got out to left arm spin. That same weakness that I talk about, getting caught at the boundary line. So she was running after partners, and I think, yeah. But I think where India had an issue is that they only had a proper batter till I think number 6. After that, it was all bowling all-rounders that followed Richa Ghosh. So I think that's also a point where I thought, मेरे को selection समझ में नहीं है. I get it that Asha Sobhana was injured, so you would replace her with a bowler. That's fine. But S. Sajna की जगह पे भी क्यों एक bowler आ गई? Why did you suddenly go with 6 bowling options on the track that's already conducive to, the spinners and bowlers in general? Why did you need an extra frontline bowler over there? You could have easily opted for another batter or stuck to Sajna if that was the case. So why did Pooja Vastrakar came in that case, or Radha Yadav, came into the side for that particular change? So that is something I was
batting as well over Sajna.
But Pooja Vastrakar has been out of form for a long time. So what's the point of that? And she's also coming back from an injury, right? I know it's being said that injury nahi hai, she's being left out, whatever it is, matchup jo bhi ho. But I think wo niggle to hai, wo pata hi hai. So batting maybe she's been struggling for a long time. So you'd have rather bat a proper frontline batter. I was talking about Yestika yesterday. Could have used her left hand. It might as well have worked. Who knows? So I think that's where Harmanpreet probably dragged it a bit too much. For last में कुछ ज़्यादा ही रह गया था. She was probably on 34 of 34 at one stage. That became 35 of 38. And then she started to accelerate. But by the time she did, India were losing grip of the game. But even heading into the last over, I felt India were in with a strong chance to win it. 14 of 6 is still gettable with somebody like Harmanpreet being out there in the middle. And Vastrakar, even despite that bad form, can still get the job done. Aisa nahi hai. She can strike it cleanly. She could have got it done. Yeah? Even at 14. हाँ, कर सकते थे. It's just that they were not able to quite get the job done that last over. And Sutherland bowled a decent over out there and got the job done. यार 4 wicket गिर गए eventually and barely 2 or 3 runs came of it. अभी इतना भी extreme मैंने expect नहीं किया था. So a good knock, but just could have maybe pasted a slightly better to probably ensure that we don't have 14 to get out of the last 6 balls.
यार मतलब वो फुल टॉस भी जो पूजा जिस डिलीवरी पे आउट हो यार मतलब मार सकती थी वो जूसी फुल टॉस ऑन लेग सब बट यू कुड सी व्हाट शी वाज एमिंग फॉर ऑफसाइड फील्ड अंदर था सो शी वाज जस्ट सॉर्ट ऑफ गिविंग हरसेल्फ रूम हो जाता है मतलब इट हैपेंस अनफॉर्चूनेटली बट नेहा all in all sure Australia's bowling there's not too much to talk about because expected is Annabeth Sutherland if my memory serves me right even in the India Australia series that happened earlier this year Annabeth Sutherland won them a game with her bowling in the last over defended less than 10 runs and eventually won the game by 3 or 2 runs or something like that. So, pata ki hai, skill hai, she bowls at the death very well. But Harmanpreet Kaur ke alawa, even Deepti Sharma chipped in with a decentish knock. A lot of people are talking about her, yaar, matlab, full tosses bhi maar nahi pai thi. She hardly scored any boundaries. In fact, she had only one boundary in her first 25 balls. It's only in the last 2-3 balls that she scored another one before getting out. But all in all, what did you make of her knock?
Yeah, actually, I have a lot of ways to look at this one because one, if India's anyways experimenting with the batting combinations, why was Deepti center at five? Probably they could have gone with Richa, looking at the situation and to get those quick runs. Agreed, Deepti came in early. She's the MVP of the WPL, and I think she has kind of shut all her critics who have criticized her enough about her not so good striking abilities and everything. But today, I just did not see the intent. I think she got like what, three boundaries and she was striking at like 100 at all points. I think at that point, India again, just stagnated when Harman and Deepti were there. They were just getting singles, a lot of dot balls. Australia was brilliant, with the kind of uh, bowlers they were bringing in to actually challenge this duo. So I really didn't understand what Deepti was trying to do. I mean, she was trying to hit, but then, it just wasn't connecting and it wasn't making a lot of sense. But I think it's more about the management and the move of sending her above Richa Ghosh. Because at one point, I was like, if you're not hitting boundaries, please just get dismissed, let Richa come, let her at least try doing something, because it was just making the situation very difficult for the following batters to come. And as Jeet rightly pointed out, after Richa they were all bowling all rounders. You can't expect them to just turn up and get you those massive runs, right? I think even the way the others were getting dismissed was telling ki matlab pressure tha from the get go and it was not going to be easy. But just looking at Deepti Sharma's promotion and the knock, it just did not make sense. And I hope the management actually has a rethink as to, how they want to use her. And I hope there's more stability, with the kind of team combination they want to opt for. Because I know the T20 World Cup is the discussion, but we have a home World Cup coming up next year. And if we are still so all over the place and, matlab, we don't have our ideas and strategies in place, I think we're going to see a repeat of something very similar like this. So I hope that part is sorted of role clarity and how we want to go about.
But yeah, just asking the same question to you. What did you make of that promotion? Because I'll also sort of air out my opinion. I personally did not make too much of the move. I personally also did understand where they were coming from. Collapse होने के chances थे. They would have wanted to delay Richa Ghosh's entry point. Fair shout. Also थोड़ा Sophie Molineux के matchup के लिए वहाँ पे भी थोड़ा, if you want to look at it that way as well, it might have helped. But all in all, what did you make of that move?
No, I didn't mind that. उसमें कुछ गलत नहीं था to delay Richa Ghosh's entry point there, and getting Dipti in is not the worst It's just that she's had her troubles against left arm spin, something that I talked about yesterday. But still, as a the longer picture doesn't really indicate that this is a bad move as such tactically. There was nothing wrong with that. But one of the points that I tried to make was that in the last over there was another moment where India needed 13 of 3, and Harman hit that shot towards mid-off, or a bhag gayi. Like, she could have stayed on strike and at least tried to have gone for the tie. Maybe a wide bhi aata, extras hote, it could have been 12 of 2. You never know. I mean, always give yourself the best chance.
Agreed.
Always. And when you have somebody like Shriyanka Patil at the other end, who is capable, but who hadn't faced a single ball at that point in time, and irrespectively, whenever you have Harmanpreet at one end and Shriyanka Patil at the other end, and when you need to hit sixes of those whatever deliveries that are remaining, you'd back Harmanpreet, of course. So I think that is also a moment where I felt Harmanpreet kind of erred a bit. There was no need for that single. But ठीक है, अभी ये सभी कभी-कभी hindsight में आता है. In the moment you end up taking that single, hoping that the player might misfield, it might hit the gap, जो भी, and you'll run two of it. So ऐसा होता है कभी-कभी. So I would entirely blame her for that. But it's a place where she could have potentially just stayed there, stayed back in the crease. Wouldn't have taken the run and given India the best chance to at least tie the game if that was possible. But otherwise, TKR, hindsight में इतना कुछ बोल के भी point नहीं. It was a close loss. It's just that sadly in the past we ये same margin almost रहा है. A single digit loss is what India have suffered previously as well. It happened in the last edition of the T20 World Cup. It happened in the Commonwealth Games. It happened in the 2022 50 overs World Cup as well. वहां तो ठीक है रन चेस था, but very very close margin. वो भी last over में गया था. So all four of these events that have taken place between India and Australia, I've seen India lose it right at the end against Australia. So it's always about getting over the line against Australia. That is a place where India keep on erring, and that's another point. It takes me back to something I mentioned yesterday. Australia know they can put runs on the board and defend anything, because cometh a situation where the team, or there is immense pressure. Australia know that they can take it, but they would know that the opponent won't be able to take it. They are not good enough, kind of tackle those kind of pressure situations and kind of cap it off brilliantly. Australia can do that, others can't. And I think that is where Australia again, kind of showed that experience to get the job done, hold their nerve in that last over.
And also it helped that they did, get an above par total. ऐसा नहीं कि they were defending a below par total here. Make no mistake, 152 was the highest score made by a team here in Sharjah. So trying to chase that down was never going to be easy, and let alone the fact that they were the defending champions that you were trying to chase against. But of course, this was a much better surface. That way, even T-Mac spoke about it at toss time. We've played 2 games here before. This is easily the best batting surface. But again, fans clearly aren't going to be very sympathetic this time around. So Rihanna also saying, why did Harmanpreet come and bat in number 4 and Jemmy at 3? Throughout the season, experiment karte rahe, and now we're back to having Jemmy at 3. What was the need for all this drama? Are they high on drugs? But to be honest,
Craziness,
today's Jemmy coming in at 3, I guess, was most situational. Ki this was always, I guess, the scenario कि पापले के अंदर विकेट गया तो जेमी आएगी, उसके बाद हरमन आएगी. So again, I understand the sentiments. I echo those sentiments. Ki everyone is upset, rightfully so. You want to win this game, these games especially. We will talk about what we saw in the first half as well. There were a couple of moments there, an umpiring howler. In fact, someone mentioning here about also how much that umpiring blunder caused. That third umpire should be banned for giving that LBW not out. We will talk about it. It did cost us because Phoebe Litchfield ended up scoring 15 of 9, which also included a 6 off the last ball. Pretty much the difference between winning and losing for India. For the uninitiated, of course, what happened was Deepti Sharma was bowling over the wicket to Phoebe Litchfield. Phoebe attempted a reverse sweep and was adjudged out by the on-field umpire. It was plumb. It was hitting the stumps. There was no two questions about it. But the third umpire adjudged it not out because it was pitching outside leg. It wasn't taken into consideration that Phoebe had switched, but you can't blame the third umpire as well. Just to be clear, sports fan, it's not the third umpire's fault. The third umpire has gone by the books here because the rules clearly state that only, pitching in line will be changed only if the batter switches their stance at the point of release. Wasn't the case with Phoebe. Phoebe never switched the stance. She never changed her hands. It was always a reverse sweep she was attempting and not a switch hit. There's a difference between the two. I know it's not... it sounds very logical कि boss क्या है मतलब at the end of the day she did become a right-hander, right? Just because she did not change her hands does not mean she's not changed the stance. I agree with all of you, logically it does not make a lot of sense, but that's what the rules state. So the third umpire can't be faulted for sticking to the rules, and credit to her, she did hold on to her decision. She did sort of take some more time, made sure that she had the rules in place and the laws were in place and she was going by the book. So you can't fault her. Hopefully MCC looks at this, relooks into it and makes the necessary changes, because that was plumb in front and that should have been out any day of the week. There's absolutely no reason why a batter gets the opportunity to also change her stance and at the same time be given not out because as a left-hander was pitching outside leg. Does not make a lot of sense, but jo hai so hai. That aside, again with the bowling as well, Neha, especially in the power play, the number of extras we conceded, we had 8 wides in total. There were a lot of leg buys. Richard Ghosh behind the stumps did not have the greatest of days. Using tiny little things like these also eventually add up when you consider the fact that the difference was just 9 runs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just looking at India's extras tallies, it's almost like 14, right? So, we lost by 9 runs. So you can pretty much do the math of how much of an impact that sort of had. But even looking at the Indian bowlers, they were just, erring on that line and length as well. Like a lot of, wides being given there. And Renuka, after every single wide, she just ends up smiling. Like, I don't know if there's some sort of rethinking, I should probably try to do this change or, something or the other. Even Harmanpreet is not, coming and, putting her hand around the bowler's shoulder and being like, hey, you can probably try this or try that. And extras have been a cause for concern. And even on the fielding side of things, like I think Harman dropped a couple of catches. Matlab, bowler think he dropped short and, it was difficult for her to do. But then,
hey, सीधा हाथ में आया था ऐसा भी
एक तो-
that was like Asia Cup, the way, like as simple as that Asia Cup drop of Harshita Samarakrama. सीधा हाथ में आया cover में, dropped. She was too late to react to it, but again, thankfully, it did not cause them too much because 2 balls later, T-Mac was out. But yeah, sorry, Neha.
No, but yeah, I mean, these extras and that poor fielding effort. I think Deepti dropped one. Then I think even Richa, was fumbling a little here and there. All of these mistakes kind of add up, right? And Australia is one team that you give them your hand, they will just take the entire thing, and they kind of made the most of every single opportunity and missed ones. So yeah, credit to them for making the most of it. But I think India really has to rethink a lot of aspects, like the one I was talking about, role clarity, and of course, just the extras bit as well.
Yeah, like the thing is, in the first innings, I was actually ruining the fact that Asha Sobhana had to miss out because I genuinely thought this was a game she could have created a lot of impact in, especially against someone like Grace Harris. I remember how Grace Harris had played leg spin in the WPL, and I felt there was a clear marker in terms of how she attacks, how she tries to slog speed them. To I won't term it a weakness. That was something that India could have really exploited, but her absence affected us. But then I can't even sort of look too much into it because Radha Yadav created a lot of impact. यार दो catches which I genuinely think कोई और होता तो दोनों drops होते, दोनों drops. एक बेट्समोनी का backward point पे और दूसरा Ashley Gardner का. It was a sculler that she had to take from the back of her head. I don't think anyone else would have caught it, not even Harman. So technically she took 2 wickets apart from T-Mac with her ball. So all in all, I guess she had, net, she really had a positive impact on the game. So we can't really look too much into it. But apart from that, Jeet, again, given that Australia was slightly weakened by Elisa Healy's absence, that bowling effort, what did you make of it in total? Whatever you could catch of it, of course.
I think it was decent, but it's just that sadly India found that day where Arundhati Reddy kind of failed to pick up a single wicket because she was amongst wickets in all the 3 games before this one. But come at this game, a crunch game, she struggled to pick up that wicket and have a similar impact on a pitch where she was expected to do something. And I think that's something that's been rather common with her in her T20I career against Australia. In the 6 innings, she has been wicketless in 4 of them and averages in excess of 70, so 72.5, and also an economy of over 8. So it's something that's been kind of historically against her. So it didn't really work out for her tonight either. And again, expensive as well. So it was kind of disappointing that she didn't have an impact on a game where she was expected to do a bit. But besides that, I would agree. I mean, Asha Shobna was a huge miss because some of the matchups could have been in her favor because we know that Australians, or at least some of the Australians, do have that weakness against a wrist spinner. And India didn't have that wrist spinner, so that was a bit of a challenge. So they basically had to bank upon Deepti Sharma, who's been out of form for the most part of this tournament with the ball. Sriyanka Patil, who's been doing a decent job, and Radha Yadav, who hasn't bowled at all or played at all so far, coming into this game. And that's why, I was wanting Radha Yadav to be a part of the previous game itself. Oh, game time important hai, irrespectively. And if you're playing against a team that you know is definitely weak, then you can always try a player like Radha Yadav out to give her that game time. You're heading into that crucial fixture. Sharda, yeah, Dover, I know 14 runs, 1 wicket. She could have bowled 4 overs. And if she had that game time, maybe we wouldn't have needed an extra bowler, yeah. एक एक्स्ट्रा बैटर भी ले सकता था. So some of these things could have been planned out better, in my opinion. But I don't think we had those kind of set plans. And tell me one thing, coming into the main tournament, all this build-up was about all these batters chipping in with the ball. Shafali bowling karti hai, Jemmy karti hai, Harmanpreet at times. Come at the main tournament, nobody bowled. And you're going at 6 bowling options. Why not go with 5 bowling options and have Harmanpreet roll an arm over, Semi roll their arm over only if required. I'm not saying her match where they should be bowling, but only if required, just like it's been happening in the lead up to this tournament. Main tournament में वो किया ही नहीं, 6 bowlers के साथ खेल रहे हो. That affects our batting depth. I know we've got bowlers who can bat, but who's in form? No one. So what's the point of that? So quite a few things could have been planned a lot better by India right from game one. And we have been seeing these issues being prevalent for a very, very long time. It's similar to that number 3 as well. Harmanpreet suddenly, plays at number 3 in the warm-up games. Dono mein. She fails. Come at the first game, again she bats at number 3, fails. Game 2 se Jhemi wapas aa gayi number 3 pe. So you don't have that clarity of thought. You don't have good plans heading into the tournament. And that's where you get exposed. It could be small things, but they could have a huge impact on the outcome in the, entire tournament and where you finish. So I just feel that, that lack of planning has kind of cost India somewhere.
I mean, at least that's not what Harman had to say in the post-match presentation. Just went through it. So at least one thing I'll give her credit for is the fact that she did say that Deepti and herself did end up taking a bit too much time towards the end. And importantly, in that partnership, they missed out on a lot of loose deliveries. Deepti herself missing at least 3 full tosses, if not more. Harman also with that I don't know why obsession, of trying to scoop every bloody delivery outside off stump. I mean, I understand that the field itself, the field setting was in such a way that they tried to bait Harman. So to be clear, they did not have a fine leg. They had a long leg who was also very square, almost like a square leg-ish. And that was Elise Perry. So उनको पता था कि Elise Perry cover कर लेगी ground. उनको tension नहीं. And they did not have a short fine. So they knew they baited Harman. So you can't even fault Harman entirely. Harman backs herself to execute that shot. In fact, she's done that time and time again in India and gotten great results out of it. So she backed herself once again, except ऑफसाइड की फील्ड भी अंदर थी, बॉल ऑफसाइड के ऑफ स्टंप के बाहर आ रहा है, तो आपको क्यों खेलना है वो शॉट? चुपचाप सीधा जो श्रीलंका के सामने आपने मारा था वही मारो यार. Just carve it past cover, carve it past point. Boundaries were there for the taking, and later on that's what she resorted to, and it yielded her great results. She scored at least 3 boundaries towards the end just by carving it past cover, carving it between cover and extra cover. Again, just and in my defense, this isn't something in hindsight. Even during the game, while discussing with the folks here off air, this was exactly my point. कि आप क्यों खेल रहे हो? Like ये क्यों चाहिए? Just you didn't have to do it, but again, just instinct. You feel you can try and get a couple of boundaries there. Never really happened, and that's where Georgia Williams 3 overs played a very big role for Australia. Her 3 overs went for just 13 runs. That 13 could have very easily been 20-21 if Harman had not resorted to those scoop shots time and time again. But jo hota hai wahi hota hai, boss. In terms of the game there at least, and yeah, I mean India are done with their 4 games, 1-2, lost 2, and that one game in particular, the New Zealand game, like we spoke about earlier as well, definitely coming to bite them hard in hindsight and in foresight. New Zealand take on Pakistan tomorrow in what is their last group stage encounter. And the equation is very simple. New Zealand have to win the game. If they lose, they go out of the tournament. So we all know who we will be supporting. I'm just trying to think, do we talk about tomorrow's game right now या England Scotland के बारे में बात करना है? क्या लगता है? Do you guys कर लो ठीक है. We'll talk about tomorrow's game. Because England Scotland, to be clear, I'll just summarize it very quickly, just so that people know कि क्या हुआ था. ऐसा नहीं कि हमने मैच नहीं देखा. Yeah, England, of course, lost the toss. They were asked to field first in the Sharjah heat. No surprises there. Scotland had just the one change, or had a couple of changes rather. There was Megan McCall who came in place of Piana Chatterjee, and that was the only change. England, on the other hand, had a couple of changes. Yeah, England, on the other hand, had a couple of changes. There was Alice Capsey missing out, and there was also Lindsay Smith missing out. In came Sophia Dunkley, which I was surprised with, and also Lauren Bell. It's funny because Jeet yesterday was saying कि इंग्लैंड का पता नहीं ऐसे लॉरेन बेल को पता नहीं कहाँ से ला देंगे तो फिर क्या करेंगे और वही किया उन्होंने. Scotland batted first. Actually started off decently. Not too bad a batting performance from them. Did not lose too many wickets unlike the previous encounters. The batters were happy to spend some time. Sarah Bryce and Saskia Holly stitched together a 38-run partnership for the first wicket. Again, not at the quickest of rates, but just the fact that they hung in there till the end of the power play just showed that boss, matlab hai, they do have the quality there. They ended up with 109 for 6 thanks to Catherine Price's 33 of 28. Pick of the bowlers, like always, Sophie Eccleston. Then England batted how Maya Busher and Danny White-Hodge really took the game by the horns. They decided that boss, net run rate apna improve karna, and they came with that single-minded intention and they executed to great effect. Both of them remained unbeaten. Both of them scored fantastic half centuries, and they chased down 113 in just 10 overs. Their quickest ever run chase in World Cups. Just going on to show, boys, this England top order, like we've discussed again and again, is just quality, sheer quality. Which basically means it's simple for West Indies and South Africa as well. The last game between England and West Indies, should West Indies win it, in all likelihood they'll go through because of their net run rate. Should they lose it, South Africa will go through because of their points. So that's pretty much, in a nutshell, how Group P is looking like and what the game was about in the afternoon. Now, coming to tomorrow's game, a game that we all will be watching very keenly, of course. Neha, Fatima Sana is back for Pakistan. How big an impact do you think she will have and her coming in will have on the side itself?
Yeah, she's definitely a value add to the side. I think through the World Cup, one of the biggest positives that Pakistan can take has to be her performance. She has led from the front. Captaining in her very first World Cup. She has not shown any signs of feeling intimidated or overwhelmed by the occasion, and has chipped in as a player as well. So definitely feel for her, because it's a tough time with dealing with the loss of her father. But then I'm still fairly certain that she will come in with that extra motivation to put a great performance and kind of make a statement as well. I think that Sophie Devine kind of acknowledged this during the pressers. We know that Pakistan will be coming in with a point to make. They would want to end their group stage on a high, and no better occasion than this to do. And I think they will have the backing of some fans across the border as well, who would be kind of rooting for them to pull off this win. So yeah, all in all, I think we're in for a very exciting game, and Fatima Sana is going to be very imperative to Pakistan's prospects there.
Jeet, again, same question to you. Fatima Sana, we spoke about how big a loss it is for Pakistan that she won't be available for them in the Australia encounter. Her coming back, do you think that could potentially be the difference between them possibly winning and definitely not winning?
Very easily, big time, in fact. And we have already talked about the kind of impact that she has had in the first two games itself, where she not only was the leading run scorer for Pakistan across the two games, but also had the highest strike rate and the most wickets. So she had an impact in all the departments alongside her stellar leadership, despite being very young and inexperienced at this level as a leader. So she has been very good. So her addition bolsters Pakistan in every department and every facet completely. And her absence was bitterly felt in the previous game that Pakistan, played. So it's going to be a huge, huge addition for Pakistan going ahead. And not to forget the last bilateral that New Zealand and Pakistan played saw Pakistan win it. और वो था भी न्यूजीलैंड में. So, and over there also it was Fatima Sana who had a huge impact in that entire series. So you can't take anything away from that talented youngster. So it's something to look forward to, from Pakistan's perspective. I know that campaign, I would say, is more of done and dusted. I know a huge win would still, kind of see them make it through, but still realistically unlikely given the NRR that they've got. It's going to be a tough ask. If they can, then who knows? Miracles do happen. So I wouldn't put it past them to actually pull it off. But just that, again, this game is in Dubai, which is again ideally suited to New Zealand, but not ideally suited to Pakistan. They would have preferred facing New Zealand at Sharjah. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge from that perspective, but it's going to be interesting. I still think Pakistan have got it in them to just get it over the line and kind of defeat or edge out a win against New Zealand. But it's about that batting, yaar. Hamesha jo issue raha hai from game one, that same thing is going to continue. And again, Fatima Sana will have a lot riding upon her to get the job done. The positive, of course, here for Pakistan being that Alia Riaz found some runs, found some form in the previous game. So it's good that, she's kind of back amongst that top three that generally score for them. Gul Firoza was out of the picture. वो पता नहीं क्या था, but क्यों आए, क्यों खेले? She failed in those games. She was out. Her replacement, ठीक है, replacement तो नहीं जाते. Sidra Amin start to open suddenly. जब number 3 पे नहीं खेल रहे थे, open करवा दिया. वही same चालू रहा. So challenges वही same रहे. But ठीक है, it's a good thing that at least Fatima Sana is back, and they would probably hope that it works out for them.
So, how do you look at New Zealand's 11 for tomorrow? Their last game was, of course, against Sri Lanka in Sharjah. This is going to be in Dubai. They made just the one change last time around, Lee Kasparek coming in place of Fran Jonas. Do you see any other changes to sort of, horses for courses kind of situation? Kuch lag raha hai aapko jahan pe, they bring in Jesker or someone like that?
Lee Kasparek is going to be out, in my opinion, because I kind of understand their thought process, which I don't agree with, but I think she's going to be out and Fran Jonas will come in her place. There is an outside chance that Jess Kerr also might come into the side, but then there is no such room remaining to, add her. It's going to be a bit of a challenge from that perspective. वही है, सिर्फ क्वेश्चन वही है कि इतना spot है नहीं, so who does she actually come in for? When Jessica played at that point in time, of course, Fran Jonas was injured or was not in the 11, so they had that room to get her into the 11. But right now, that's not an option. So I think Lee Kasparek will be out irrespectively, and it's still a 60-40 call for me. Either Fran Jonas plays, which is a 60% chance, or Jessica plays, which is a 40% chance. If in case both play, then Leah Taho is a spot that they could look at.
Interesting. Okay. And Neha, what about you in terms of New Zealand's 11? Given that this is a must-win encounter for them, so they would want to put their best foot forward. Kya laga? How do you think they'll be approaching this?
Yeah, I think just looking at the last game, right, the way Lee Kasperick kind of performed, I would be tempted to, kind of have her in that playing 11. But again, the conditions are different. This is Dubai. So it will be quite interesting to see what is the kind of combination they would want to go for. Because I think New Zealand still, would want to go for the win with their best playing 11 as well. And Fran Jonas has done, like reasonably well. So let's see what happens tomorrow. But still, hoping that they kind of retain that same playing 11. Wouldn't be too surprised if they kind of, enforce the change to kind of, match the conditions as well.
Yeah, I mean, before we discuss it further, just to be clear, of course, the New Zealand Pakistan encounter tomorrow will be the only game happening, and that's coming live from Dubai at 7:30 p.m. sharp Indian Standard Time. But from Pakistan POV as well, Jeet, what do you think is going to be an ideal situation for them? Win the toss, bat first, and take it from there, or do you see it, sort of panning out differently for them if it has to be in their advantage?
I would say probably batting first is a good way to go about it for them because they know how New Zealand performed against India at the same venue, how it really panned out for them, scoring that 160 and then defending it with such ease, with Rosemary Mayer, of course, running through the batting order of India. So they know what worked for them, and that's exactly what New Zealand will back again. It's a night game. So they would prefer to do the same thing against Pakistan. So just to counter that and just to avoid a situation like that, Pakistan will be better off batting first, but वही है, it's important for them to at least touch that 130 mark. 130 touch kiya to for chance definitely. I don't know how the pitch is going to behave. If it's the same pitch that was used during the Bangladesh versus South Africa game, then I think it's advantage Pakistan because I could clearly see those slow balls also gripping a lot for the spinners, something that I've never seen at Dubai in this tournament, that is specifically. So if it's the same track that is used and if it behaves in a similar way that it did back then I think Pakistan would fancy their chances against New Zealand. Is this that they need to bat first, get to that 130 mark? Anything above that is, of course, a lot more better and strengthens the chances a lot more. But they would still back themselves to get the job done if it's that kind of a surface.
And I'm just trying to remember what were the couple of changes they made last time around. There was Iram Javed who came in. Was that the only change they made? I feel there was one
No,
more.
no.
Gul Firoza missed out. So who was the
Gul
other person?
Firoza missed out for Shadab Samas.
Oh yeah, Sadaf Shamaski. Yeah, yeah. So who? So what are the changes for Pakistan and how? Who do you think will Fatima Sana replace?
It's going to be one change, yeah. Shadab Samas is going to go out again. And
So
it's going to
Iram
be
Javed
Fatima
holds
Sana
on
coming
to
in
his
her
spot.
place. Yeah, Ram Javed is going to hold on to a spot, is what I feel. Yeah, that's what I expect, really.
And last time, if I'm not wrong, Sadaf played over Iram Javed because Sidra opened. Number 3 पे जहाँ तक मुझे याद है, it was Sadaf Shamas who walked in. Let me just confirm that once again. But yeah, in terms of
No,
changes, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Pakistan के लिए वो ही एक change होगा because with Fatima Sana coming back, it of course strengthens their sort of batting as well as the bowling side of things. But again, I'm interested to see what is her entry point. Would they still want to play her as low as like 6 or something, or would they want to bring her in at 4 in case they lose a lot of wickets? And I think even if Pakistan does end up winning the toss, I think batting first would not be a bad shout because I think they can bat with a lot of freedom, no pressure of kind of having a target to chase. And although their batting has not been the strongest suit this World Cup, I think just looking at the conditions, they can probably try to make the most of it. Dubai is known, right, for its batting as well. So in that sense, I'm hoping Pakistan, if given a chance to bat first, kind of puts a competitive total, if not say 130, at least a 120, and then try to defend it. They have the bowlers in them, and they're coming in with that extra motivation as well, right? Last league match, so kind of hoping for that. But I think the only change would be Fatima Sana coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, and Sadaf Shamas did bat at number 3 last time around. Like I forgot, Iram Javed had actually walked in very late at number 7. So it will be interesting. मतलब अगर ऐसा like for like समझ के वो इराम जावेद को हटा के if they hold on to Sadaf at number 3, that's also a possibility there. But in terms of pace reinforcements, of course, they decided to replace Dana Beg with Najiha Alvi. So वहाँ पे तो कुछ नहीं है. But Tasmia Rubab, any outside chance of them bringing her in place of one of Tuba Hassan or Saida Rubsha?
no, I don't see any chance of that taking place. In fact, I mean, it was Sadaf Shamas who actually rolled her arm over as a pacer and
Oh
bowled that one
yeah.
over that went for 11 runs. So of course, like I have mentioned, Iram Javed also is an option, but they didn't utilize her. And Iram's knock down the order was a very slow one as well, 12 or 25. But Sadafka at number three was a very low score as well. So neither of them clicked with the bat. Just that who is a better pacer out of the two, and that's what Pakistan will be looking at. While Sadaf is a technically good batter, she bats in the top order, and so far she's struggled. ODI maybe. I think she's very promising, but वही just like other batters, she also has the problem of being very slow. So number three पे किसी को भी खिला लो problem रहने वाला until you really kind of open your mind to new ideas and try out Alia Riaz or Nidada or somebody who could be a lot more attacking at number three or at least consistent at number three. तब तक कुछ नहीं होने वाला किसी को भी खिला लो. So there is a chance that Iram Javed might again go out this time around and Sadaf might hold on to a spot to just bowl that 1 or 2 overs of pace.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Like दोनों top order batters में से कौन खेलेगा जो बेहतर pace bowler है वो खेलेगा. Like just the filters being used, the criteria. I mean, given what's happening with the men's cricket there in Pakistan, this is actually no surprise there. But Neha, again, like final thoughts on Pakistan itself. Given that this game is in Dubai and Pakistan have played, this will be the third consecutive game in Dubai. New Zealand, on the other hand, haven't played there in 10 days. When they play tomorrow, they played only the game against India 10 days ago. So it's been a slightly longish break. So do you think again that might potentially give Pakistan an edge, or do you see New Zealand being very thorough in their performance against Pakistan?
I honestly think New Zealand will be quite thorough, in their performance versus Pakistan. I mean, although Pakistan has studied the conditions and has, played here longer, I don't think that will play such an important role because New Zealand probably, yeah, I think they will come all guns blazing. They really know what is at stake, and this is versus a team like Pakistan, who they've had some very tough losses in the past as well. But still, I think this is a renewed New Zealand side. At least we'd like to see that sort of a thing. And I hope it's an evenly contested match. Again, not very lopsided in the favor of New Zealand. So I'd probably still, as an Indian fan, I would back Pakistan for that win. But wouldn't be too surprised if New Zealand walks away with the win because they come in, with a much more strengthened batting and bowling department when you compare them with Pakistan. So yeah, let's see what happens tomorrow.
And Jeet, what about you in terms of the game? क्या लग रहा है? Expectations, predictions?
Tough call here. I think toss is going to kind of again hold a bit of a bearing, not from conditions perspective, but in terms of what has really worked over here for New Zealand in that game against India. And overall, भी ऐसे देखने जाए तो it's been kind of interesting because overall तो ऐसे देखने जाए तो chasing teams have done slightly better. So it's going to really depend upon toss, but it's a very close caller. But I still think that New Zealand would kind of fancy their chances against Pakistan. Pakistan being very low on confidence. It's true. Look, I think this is where things can get really, really interesting or could heat up a little bit. Pakistan are not officially out of the tournament. They know that they need a big win. And when they know that they need a big win, means that they will have to play that attacking brand of cricket without any choice. They will have to attack. They cannot afford to go at a turtle space in this game and be content with 110 or 120. Attack karna hi padega, batting first or batting second ho. So that might as well see some shuffling taking place in the batting order. Some of the attacking batters batting higher up the order, or some of the slower batters playing aggressively. Sidra Amin, Muniba Ali, they could play aggressively. So that is where things could get really interesting. And by any chance, just by any chance, Pakistan end up scoring in excess of 140, then I think they should be able to win this game.
Yeah, 140 will be a very good score. मैं तो 120, 130 सोच रहा हूँ. That will be par according to me. But 140 अगर पहुंच गया तो nothing like it. Basically, जो मैंने चमरी से expect किया था against New Zealand, what I was manifesting for. Let's hope Fatima Sana is able to do that. If not the Sri Lankan skipper, let's hope the Pakistan skipper is able to do that. Just all the I won't say frustration, but given that they're potentially out of the tournament and there's also personal grief and all of that, let's hope she's able to channelize that in the right way and put up a solid performance. यार जीत लो भाई, मतलब पाकिस्तान दिल भी जीत लो, मैच भी जीत लो, मजा आ जाएगा. That's all we're here for. Someone here saying Pakistan versus New Zealand is like Mongolia versus England. मतलब यार Pakistan won against New Zealand in New Zealand in a 3-match T20I series just last year. ऐसा भी नहीं कि बहुत टाइम पहले. तो you can count them out at your own peril. We won't, but we surely wouldn't say that. We definitely think it'll be a close game, and we hope it's a close game, irrespective of which side do they. I mean, which end of the result do they end up on? Hopefully, they will be on the right side for sure. But anyways, that's that from today's episode of what we wanted to talk about. At least क्या नाम सोच रहा था, कुछ नाम है क्या, नाम तो है नहीं. Today's review preview जो भी बोलना है उसी के लिए. Slightly disappointed. Hopefully, we'll get to see a nice game tomorrow as well. But yeah, fingers crossed, we will get to see India play a lot more in the tournament. Again, tomorrow and day after will be the last 2 days of the group stage. Then there'll be a 1 day break on Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday will be the two semi-finals before we see the two winners or the winning semi-finalists move on to the final next Sunday, exactly 7 days from now. Fingers crossed, somehow, through a nice twist of fate, let's hope we get to see Team India come next Sunday in Dubai. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you hit the like button if you haven't already. And please do subscribe to us if you haven't already. I know it's the start of the week tomorrow. Monday blues are going to hit you hard. So we're here for you. Thank you until then.